好，亲爱的老师们，大家好，欢迎您参与今晚由引领中文教学的全美中小学中文教师协会举办的 CLASS FRONTLINE 热点谈节目。我们诚邀坚守一线教学的 CLASS 会员老师们，畅所欲言，交流心得，探讨教学热点。CLASS 与您同行，奋力勇进，守望相助，共抗疫情，走在教学的前沿。今天呢，我们的热点谈请来了一位特殊的嘉宾，套用我们注册会议本次热点谈节目的一位老师的这个留言，就是说，哇 ，Meredith White 老师可是大神级的老师。老师们没错，我们今天请到的不仅是一位大神女神，同时也是我们 CLASS 也是 ACFO 2018年的Teacher of the Year 金英老师的闺蜜好朋友，对不对？好，那今天呢，我现在就把时间交给我们的金英老师，由她来主持今晚今晚的热点谈节目，欢迎我们的嘉宾，谢谢。
谢谢李老师 Meredith. We were just you were just being introduced as goddess. I know. And 欢迎各位老师们。真的是特别高兴，今天能请到我的这个闺蜜来跟大家分享。她在我们业界非常有名，总是走在这个创新新科技的前沿。那我们今天开始的时候呢，现在还刚刚5点啊，我的时间，加州时间5点，要请老师们做一个小小的活动来参与，是什么呢？因为我有跟Meredith 讲说要给她一个中文名字，但是我没有想出来，可不可以麻烦老师们帮我们开动脑筋，帮 Meredith 想一个中文名字？她的全名是 Meredith White， 名字就在这个屏幕上，大家看到了，请老师们帮忙开动脑筋。This is we got good names.
Really?
Already.
I hope they're flattering names.
We're going to form a committee. Okay, let's come to pick a good name for you. Wow, 好棒，好棒，好棒。Wow.
Complimentary.
Complimentary. Okay. And well, 老师们，请您继续更多的好名字的建议送进来。那我想我们一边这个在动脑筋想名字，我们一边就开始。今天时间很宝贵啊，我真的是想隆重的介绍我们今天的嘉宾 Meredith。他是西班牙文老师，可是您知不知道他已经是第4代的外语老师了？就是父辈、祖辈、曾祖辈都是外语老师，真的很棒。那他自己呢，大家可以在屏幕上也看到了。他有拿过各种的这个学位啊，都是跟外语教学有关系的。他自己的专长呢是在教这个 novice， 就是初级学习者。我想另外他自己对这个真实语料啊，另外这个thematic unit 都很有研究。那我想他现在呢是在乔治亚州。在那里工作，而且呢，他在平时是在乔治亚州立大学，在那里做教师培训的工作。好，我闲话不多说了，那我想呢，我们就把这个时间呢多用在跟 Meredith 聊天上面。Okay, so Meredith, quick question. When did you start this remote teaching? When was that?
Well, officially this year. But before that, I have done, I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago, I started really putting the pressure on myself to make everything we were doing in class available to students. And that was, I learned a lot because I learned what I needed to organize. I learned what I needed to plan ahead. And I think those are 2 really important parts of delivering instruction not in the classroom. So
wow.
Yeah, almost like I started playing with flipped classroom. And then when we transitioned to all of this, whatever we're doing now, I felt like I was really well prepared as you can be. I mean, this was weird, but yeah, I felt like my students didn't really miss a beat. They just kind of were ready. So
right. And I think I'm sharing my experience, but I'm pretty sure a lot of teachers, especially Chinese teachers, will share my feeling. I think when I start to teach online, one of the biggest challenges is I don't see them anymore. I see them, but I don't really see them anymore, right?
Right.
And I know, for instance, my school district has this rule. We cannot ask students, if they want to turn on their video camera, that's fine, but we cannot say you have to. So without seeing them, visually seeing them,
right.
How do we engage them? I think that's maybe the first question.
Right. I think, I think there's a lot of things to think about that. I think we define engage. I think we have to look at kind of what would we have done in the classroom and how accessible can we make it even without us, sort of like substitute plans, but like for a long time. And so like the way that like you have to think like so carefully when you make substitute plans, like do this, do this, do this. And it's almost like that, but with students, like for me, high school teenagers with a 15-year-old reading it. So is it clear? Are there lots of examples? How can I get as close to being in person as I can? Because the nice thing is they can pace themselves when learning online, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I know you have prepared a lot of slides for today's presentation, right?
Yeah, take it all. Take it.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. So maybe you can start to share.
Sure, of course. Absolutely. And I want to hear about those names too later.
Later. Wait, I really see good names. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay.
I don't understand. It's going to be crazy.
Okay. So that's the question.
Yeah. And here we go. Right. Yeah, exactly. So how can we engage them remotely? Again, I think we have to look at engage because sometimes I think, I was defining for a long time, engage as just they did the activities, just compliance. And engagement really means that they're like sort of tugging, like they're pushing and pulling with the activity, with the material. Curiosity is sparked and they want to know more. They want to know more information. They want to do something with it, with the information, and they want to feel like they're getting better because it's like exercise or anything. If you don't feel like you're getting better or stronger or like more in shape, why continue? So I know when I look at engagement, I first have to look at my planning. And so I come back to the actual 6 core practices. And I love these because they simplify our job, and our job is really not simple at all. And so they make it, they break it down just into 6 things that we need to work to do as often as possible, preferably all the time. So staying comprehensible in the target language, using authentic resources, designing interpersonal communication where they can engage with the language back and forth, either like orally, the 6 core practices oral, but also written, and especially remote, they can type things without Google Translate. They need to be sort of playing with all these things. Backward design, so planning with the end in mind, and then grammar in context, as well as getting lots of feedback. So in remote context, not oral feedback necessarily, but some different kinds of feedback. So to the right, you can see that I have taken my favorite technology tools. I know there are lots more, but these are just my favorites because I think a lot of times when we learn about technology, and like the title of this, sustainable technology, I don't want to try all the things all the time. That makes me overwhelmed. It makes me feel like I'm not doing a good job. It makes me feel like I use one tool one time and then I forget about it, or I don't like it. And then I feel kind of bad because if Ying says, oh, I love whatever, something, and I hate it, like, really? It's terrible. I hate, whatever. I can think of a couple that I hate, but then I might feel like, oh, am I missing something? Am I missing out? And I don't want to feel like I'm missing out because we already do enough. We do enough. And so I put my favorite tech tools and I put them in the 3 modes. So you can see it's interpretive, interpersonal, presentational. And then at the bottom, I added my favorite tools to create things for students and to keep myself organized. So you're going to see, we're going to pull out a couple of these pieces and we're going to basically go in like through the modes. Oops, I clicked a button. Hold on. I clicked on the core practices. And so you'll see basically, that's everything in there is hyperlinked. So you'll get, the PDF is in the chat. You can get it and click on everything clearly. And so when I click here, I'm going to keep going here. The first thing we have to do is reflect and categorize. If it doesn't need technology, then I don't worry about it. I used to use Class Dojo a lot. And then I was walking around with the iPad and then I'd set the iPad down and then I'd forget where I put the iPad. And then 3 days later, I'd pick it up and realize it looked like no one had been in class. And it was extra because I don't need it for anything. I don't take attendance on, I have my own, our district has things that we use. So I just do that on paper. And I log behavior on paper. I check like warm-up sheets. I do a lot of stuff just on paper. So if it needs a technology tool, okay. But if it doesn't, I make sure that I don't feel badly if I'm not using something. Because I don't want to feel like I'm not doing enough because we are doing enough. We are doing too much. We're working on a Saturday right now. So we're doing plenty. So these two are just ones that I pulled out right away for engagement, because I think engagement comes back to what kind of material are we making or giving to our students? And then also, how are we keeping it all organized? These to me are the pillars of engagement. Students, and I know I'm the same, like as an adult in school, as a graduate student right now, I'm taking a self-paced summer course, and it's really nice because everything is all laid out and I can go as quickly as I want, or I can put it all off to the end, which would be terrible. And I can wait and procrastinate and be miserable, but it's my choice. So I come back to natural consequences. A lot of times I think we talk about motivation. How do we motivate students? And at the end of the day, I think in a lot of ways we can't, in ways that they are not already motivated. But even if they aren't super motivated, nobody wants to fail something and nobody wants to feel stupid and nobody wants to not learn. And so if we can organize learning episodes for students and show them that we have a plan, the plan is very clear, and I'm going to give you interesting things to learn and talk about and hear and read, well, then there you go. There's the motivation, because we can't change like who they are or what's going on in their lives, but we can set them up for, hey, you're going to miss out. I always think of before camera phones. Before camera phones, we would tell stories and say, oh, Ying, you should have been there. You weren't there, but it was so funny. Now we can just like record everything and we don't say you should have been there. It was funny. And that to me is how class should be a little bit. Oh, you were gone. You missed it. You should have been there, because something really engaging and interesting happened. So these are my favorite I always do this with my students. So I'm like a robot program now for interpretive. So like reading or listening. And then, like I said at the bottom there, these are just some tips that aren't mentioned. I made sure a couple years ago to label all my Quizlet sets really clearly. They were labels for me. They were inconsistently named, and it made a big deal when I had students access them and go, oh, this is obvious. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Spanish 1, Unit 1, Spanish 1, Unit 2. I know that sounds really stupid, but mine were not named very well, and then students were confused. And the second one is Pinterest. If you're on Pinterest, like personally, it's also really nice for teaching. You can keep authentic resources all by topic and unit. One like Leslie Gran, who's amazing, has Pinterest boards for like all languages. She's got Chinese, Spanish, they're incredible, and really, really awesome. And so I recommend checking those out. She's Pinterest.com/Gran4Lang, like GRAHNFORLANG. She's incredible. And so she's really great. And that's a really nice way to find something, save it, and then like move on. And you can give students access to those Pinterest boards later and say, okay, find any authentic resource you want. We're in Unit 2, like find something and tell me, whatever the task is. And now all you did was put all the things in one place. And if they can get online, cool, they can look at it on their phone or whatever. And I also do YouTube videos that are curated by theme and unit. And I'm still organizing those, but that was really handy. So especially for online, for remote, engaging them, you could call, you know, it might be unit 1, video 1 of 10, unit 1, video 2 of 10, something that makes it clear, like maybe how many there are and what order students should probably go in. I know that sounds silly, but we start to name them because we know what they're about. And then it's like, oh, okay, the past tense. And they're like, when am I supposed to look at what? And you know, so we have to, again, be really clear and be really organized. And then at the bottom too, I linked it to my virtual classroom if you want a copy of that. I'm going to show you a little piece of that later, but again, there are all the hyperlinks, and I like adding emojis and bitmojis just to spice things up. Edpuzzle is one of my favorites. And if you want to level up your Edpuzzle use a little bit, I like making my own videos with Snapchat and then just making my own videos into an Edpuzzle. This was me going to Central States. Actually, Ying, I think this was when you won. I think you were actual teacher of the year at this one. So I think I saw you there. That's so funny. I think it was. Maybe it was the year after. I can't remember. But anyway, and so I was on my way to Chicago, and I was like, I was Chicago. And so I was like videoing as I walked through the airport in Spanish. I got a lot of strange looks, but that's usual. That's normal for me. So I'm used to that. We do it for the children. And so I was taking pictures and taking videos. And then with Snapchat, it's just one button and you can download the whole thing. So then I put the video into Edpuzzle and inserted questions. So as I was going, I could say, in Spanish, where is she going? Are there a lot of people? Because maybe what I said in the video was, traffic was terrible. There are so many cars here. So I never said there were a lot of people, but they can infer that a lot of cars, a lot of traffic, and they can see in the background that I'm like, excuse me. And so they can assume, a lot of people. And so asking them kind of further questions like that. Edpuzzle is really nice for interpretive checks, really nice for formative, not graded ones. I sometimes take it as a grade, but if it's a grade, you'll probably have students ask to redo it 1,000 times, which is fine, but I like them formative instead because it's like a lot to reset. What's nice is you could do the same one twice, have them do a couple of Edpuzzles at the beginning of a unit, and then have them do the same ones at the end and compare the scores. And that's really interesting to see what they could have picked up without you. And then after a couple of weeks of the unit or whatever, Edpuzzle is really great. I also like to make a lot of text messages from celebrities and pretend like they're in love with me. And the students are like, oh my God, you're so embarrassing. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so this one's from Nicky Jam, who's one of my favorite singers. He's very good looking, but the students never think he's good looking, so he's all mine. I can have him. But he compliments me and says, you're perfect. You're hardworking, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're funny. Do you want to go to the movies with me? And I made this text message. So I made it in ifaketextmessage.com. So again, remotely, it's really easy to make this, save the picture, and then put it on Canvas or eClass. That's what I use. It's Learning, any of those like learning management systems, whatever your school or district has, and so whatever the kids can see digitally, you can just save it as a picture. So once you're all done typing, you can save it. After you save it though, you can't edit it. So you have to be really careful about typos, because I've had the perfect message before, saved it, and then gone away from the screen and realized I had an error, and you have to just redo the whole thing, which is really annoying. I'm like, come on, but it's free. So like, I guess I can redo the whole thing. If you make a series of those, then this is going to be a different example, but let's say you make one, or you have one each day as like part of the warm up, which is really funny because they're like, oh my God, lady, he's not in love with you. I'm like, no, he is. You guys, he is. Once you make several, then we've put them into like quizzes and tests before. So we put these in. This is the first Spanish 1 test. And so we gave them choices, but it's a whole conversation and they're picking what goes most appropriately into the blanks. Now you've got a couple that could be switched around, but only like 2. And we realized it after the fact. So that's in this example. But you could leave it open-ended and not give a word bank, which is really nice. Then it sees what they come up with, or give them 2 and leave like 1 blank. And then they have to come up with the rest of the conversation, which is really funny. So if it's like that celebrity asking me to the movies, then it could be like, okay, keep the conversation going. What does Miss White say next? And they are usually in class when I use that, I get rejected a lot. I never get asked to the movies again. He says, never mind. And it's really sad. So that's students for you. But using them later on in a quiz or a test is, we've found to be really fun because they're also already familiar with the format. Students know they're looking at a text message and they go, oh, okay. And they can really easily pick out the information. Again, choices or no choices, totally up to you. Another fun one is the app Texting Story. It's called textingstory.com, but it's an app. So the website just takes you to the app. I find that annoying. But once you get the app, basically, and I'll click on this one, basically it's, you see the text message conversation type out in the moment. Now this is Nicky Jam again, and he's telling me how beautiful and amazing I am. I told you, he's obsessed with me. And so this is cool because I typed this. I didn't put in the text. So that's actually me typing. So what you could do is, what if I say, oh, I'd love to go to the movies with you, and then backspace, like delete. No, sorry, I can't go. Now they can see that play out. And then you could ask the question, especially for upper levels, what happened? Why didn't she say yes? Or two characters in a story, two characters in a historical text, two characters in a fable or like a fairy tale or something, where the plot changes and the story changes because you can see that they typed some kind of answer like, oh, yes, great, but then went, never mind, delete, and type something else. So you can demonstrate some story nuances there. And it's pretty cool. This one goes on and on. I didn't realize it was 2 minutes until after I made it. And then the next day in class, I wouldn't make a long one. Keep them short because the 2 minutes was too long. Students were like, oh my gosh. But it also forces them to read kind of quickly in the moment in the language, which is neat. And so I really like that one. These rubrics, so for those interpretive resources, like if they're on Pinterest, these rubrics are really nice. Anne-Marie Chase makes these, and they're aligned with the actual proficiency levels, and they go for levels. So like this is just like a level 2, so it starts at novice mid, novice high, intermediate low. You can change that. She's in Nevada, and so her proficiency guidelines say that by the end of level 2, they should probably be at intermediate low. Georgia's a little bit different. It says novice high or intermediate low. So you can change those. And she's got a whole blog post that I linked here, that I linked on the rubrics in the speaking comments. And then here, when all the pandemic happened in yellow, she made an electronic version, which is great. So this is really nice if you have like a big, this infographic from the Health Institute of like Beijing, and they've got this amazing information, and you're like, this is incredible. But I don't want to make a bunch of comprehension questions for this, because now you found a great resource, but comprehension questions sometimes are just a message to students to read our minds. If it's like, I'm going to ask these 10 questions, it automatically implies that those are the 10 things that I think are important. And so that's a little bit tricky sometimes. Comprehension questions aren't bad, but I think only comprehension questions can sometimes not give students a lot of freedom. So then we say, ooh, Ying, you only got 2 out of 10 right. I mean, typical Ying. I know, typical. I know. Is bao good? What's not good? What's bad?
不好.
Oh, boo hao, Ying, boo hao. 2 out of 10. But the 8 that she missed, it's only boo hao. I'm going to remember that. Boo hao. It's only because they're questions that I thought were important. These rubrics have students show what they understand. And so it's like open-ended. So if all they can do is novice mid at level 2, okay, that just means they're pulling out isolated words at that point. It's like actually kind of novice low. But later, if they can understand complete sentences, oh, the Health Institute recommends, especially right now with COVID and all these different like resources that are coming out, it's really interesting to look at some of those in the target language. And the electronic version of those rubrics is incredible. Anne-Marie Chase is incredible, everything she does. Another thing that's engaging is talking about their weekend or their weekdays, but that can be a little awkward for me because they don't sometimes know a lot of things, and they don't, if they're not familiar with the past tense, then I might say, oh, in Spanish, like, Ying, ¿cómo te fue el fin de semana? ¿Qué hiciste ayer? And if she's like, okay, what did I, and then I have to tell her what I asked, right? Boo-how, Ying, boo-how. Boo-how. Then she might go, wait, what are you asking? And it's like, what did you do yesterday? And then she might say, oh, how do I say I slept? And it's like, oh my God, we're just in English now. I would have just asked you in English if I wanted it in English. And so these, the weekday chat and the weekend chat, are a great way to scaffold things that maybe they already want to say. So you've anticipated a lot of things, and you're able to get them to say more. I think there is either already a Chinese version of the weekend chat, or there's one being made. I'll have to check with Bethany, but her blog post is linked in the speaker notes on the PDF. And so if that came through in the chat, then that should be visible for the Chinese. I know there's a German version, a French version, a Spanish version. And like I said, I think she either said she has a Chinese version now or she's getting one. And so what's cool is one side says, what did you do this weekend? So it's good like on Monday. And the other side, the other piece of the PDF says, what are you going to do this weekend? So it's really good for Friday. So like Friday and Monday, you can engage them and, okay, what did you do? Where did you go? Tell me something interesting, or tell me something terrible, or lie to me. And I have to guess if you're lying or not, or I have to guess, tell me 3 things and 2 of them aren't true. One of them you actually did do. But the scaffolding here is really nice because it's already there. And then for my students later, when we look at why the past tense looks like that, they go, oh, we already used this. There's no wait until unit 5 kind of a thing, which I used to do a lot. Oh, Ying, thanks for asking about the past tense. You'll see it later. Oh my God, why don't we just tell them? And so it's some nice scaffolding. And then in terms of sort of that interest in task, a lot of times, this is just a little bit of a level up feature that you can also add. So giving them interesting things to talk about, but also figuring out how they want their feedback. A lot of times engaging is really just, I want to know that my teacher cares about me. And I want to know that they don't just, mark up papers and that's all they think is just that I'm this whole paper with all of this writing. And so one thing that we've done in my department the last couple of years is, as we've gotten better sort of at scaffolding and doing all these things and trying to give students opportunities to really engage with material, also asking them how do they want to engage with feedback? Because not everybody wants a whole paper with like markings all over it. I do, but that's why I'm a language teacher. And that's why we're working on a Saturday, is because I'm like, tell me everything. But a lot of students don't want that. And especially like in levels 1 and 2, that can be really hard. So giving them the choice, or giving them a choice of what kind of feedback they want, especially if you're remote. So you're not spending all that time typing out feedback if they don't want it. So we give our students the choice. And like I said, you could also give them the choice of what kind. Do you want me to tell you which parts I didn't understand? Do you want me to tell you which parts that I like, or which parts were my favorite? That's a really fun one to do, especially the first few times they write. All I highlight is my favorite part. And they're so programmed to do school that they go, oh, is that what I got wrong? I'm like, no, that was the best part. Like they can't even recognize that you would just point out the positive. And so it's really nice. It's a really nice way to get them to keep engaging with tasks because they feel like they have some choice there, which is really, really nice. And then also that rubric is embedded. Sarah and I were just talking before we started, about how much we love this writing form, and it's also hyperlinked in there. You can just buy the package. I think it was like $4.99 or something, but it's worth every cent from Martina Beck's, and it's not language specific. So this little picture has Spanish, but it's any language. And along the side, it's got like this, but in a different format because she updated it. It's got, it has the ACTFL proficiency guidelines. And so you can just circle it and then really focus on the feedback, which is really cool. And focus how how students are comfortable engaging. And the last part that I think is important for engaging too is also showing students how they can get ahead. A lot of times we say, oh, Ying, boo how. You got 2 out of, I know, you need to study. 2 out of 10, and your whole writing paper was, tons of errors and blank and whatever. But what about what they can do? We tell them a lot of times what they can't do, but what about telling them, this is what's impressive. I'll just give you the words. That way you're not sitting there going, oh, I should use also. What is also? How do you say also? Okay, well, now they feel even worse about not knowing the impressive words. And so giving them the impressive words, or giving them the ways to, level up their own writing and speaking without making it like mind reading or, threatening.
Yeah, wow. You are amazing, Meredith.
Because I get a lot of ideas from amazing people, and then I screw it up, and then I figure it out.
Yeah, and I think really for me, you group your technology tools based on the 3 modes, and that's really helpful. That's really helpful.
There's so many out there, and I start saying no, and I get really overwhelmed, and it's like I don't need any more tools now. I use this for this for this, and this for this, and some of them carry over and do more. Awesome, great.
Yeah. And we all know, among the 3 modes of communication, interpersonal is always maybe the most challenging one. Needless to mention, now we're teaching online.
Right.
Any suggestions, any strategies you can share with us?
Absolutely. I think we've got to look too at like which interpersonal skills, because I automatically think of interpersonal speaking. And while we can do that with tools like Flipgrid and, even just meeting with students like this, like we had to last quarter. Oh my God, it was so many emails, none of them in the language. And so, unfortunately, getting them interpersonally speaking is a little bit trickier, but we can get them interpersonally writing a little bit easier. So I like a little bit of both, especially remotely. Padlet's really fun for like presentational writing. And then if they respond to each other, interpersonal responding. So they can respond with different comments. And I just like Padlet because it's just sort of like a collage, a collection of different comments, and it's really easy for them to use. They don't need to sign up for it or anything. I try to use this, if I think of like timing, I try to use it like once a unit, maybe at the beginning, once or twice, just to get them looking at vocabulary. So this was, what do you recommend to be healthy? They were writing what to do, what not to do, other recommendations from an infographic. So they were putting the vocabulary in context. And so it's a really nice way to see what they understood, what they didn't from an article or from an infographic, or what they can also put what they don't know. Like, list me all the words you don't, they'd be there a while, but list words you think look important that actually you can't figure out what this is saying because you don't know that one word. Because for this one, if they don't know the word healthy, the rest of it doesn't really matter. And so saludable is a really important word in this context. And Padlet's really nice. Then with the responding, you can see, and we know the Google Translate is really obvious. So like, suddenly a student, right? Suddenly a student who can't say anything is speaking in 3 different tenses, and they're going, oh my goodness, I love, no, stop, like you're lying. And so making it like quick, if it's quick, they're less likely to completely put in Google Translate. I like it when they use it a little bit, I need it sometimes for Spanish, and I teach Spanish. I use it all the time. Like, oh, what's the word for like animals, especially? I don't know any animals, because I never come in contact with animals while I'm speaking Spanish. So like, or they don't have the animal in those, countries. And so I don't know. And so I think using it's okay, but there are a lot of mistakes here, which I really like. So a lot of mistakes is good because it shows they're actually trying. This is Spanish one. Another one that's fun is just social media, even just to create. You don't have to engage with students, but I linked here an article and some other resources and a video. Even if you just want to use Snapchat to create materials, it's really, really handy. Because again, the more engaging, the more interesting, the more likely they are to be interested and to engage with it. So I took these pictures with Snapchat. I think these are really funny. These are the filters. And so you can put different filters and then I can put the caption on in the language. And so, I'm like, oh, I'm ready for the 80s in the middle one. And then the last one says, why do I have a beard? And you can give different questions, or the students make their own, but they don't have to add you. You can just have it on your phone, and you never have to interact with them. I've done both, and I like it as a creation tool. It's really, really nice. And then you can decide. I've spent hours and probably years of my life trying to find that one perfect resource that uses this word and this word and this word from chapter 3 of the book. And we never find them all in one place because the book is not real life. It can be helpful, but it's not real life. So when you're watching the blogger or a YouTuber who's speaking in Chinese and like doing her makeup, and you're like, this video is amazing. Like, we have a daily routine unit. We can talk about that. But she's using not the words in the chapter. Oh, well, who cares? So with resources like this, when you use it for, you can make your own, now you can come back and use those words in the chapter. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times we have to do some things, or at least if you're like me, I have a big department and we have a book and we can do a lot of things and be creative, but I'm still accountable to my colleagues in a way that I can't just ignore everything. So at some point they have to see certain words and they have to use them. Instagram, however, is my favorite, and it's really, really fun for interpersonal writing. So students can comment on different posts. You can put posts in the language. This is, if you want to follow our account, this is our class Instagram account. So follow, it's public. We won't follow you back. It's just me. And you'll see a lot of pictures. You'll see that I pretty much always pose a question, not as much as I used to, but used to pose a question almost every day, and then students could respond to that question. And that's really nice for interpersonal writing, or just even on your story. You can post things for the story, and then students respond. If you don't want it to be interpersonal, you can turn off comments. And so students can't actually comment on any posts that you make, which I think is pretty cool. So you're not worried about posting a picture of something and some student saying something inappropriate. You can turn off comments and just, I don't know what it is in English, but in Spanish it says disactivate comments. And so that's pretty cool. So then it could just be photos, and maybe they message you or respond to something if they like it or whatever. But I like it for interpersonal writing. I like it when they comment in Spanish. And I used to make part of my warm-up routine, one of the options to go on Instagram and comment on today's the photo of the day. So you could take a picture and almost have an Instagram type thing on your learning management system for your district, comment on today's photo of the day, and use Instagram or Snapchat, any of those, to make the picture and draw on it and put a caption. Super easy, really, really easy. And then if you can get the photo onto your slides or onto your learning management system, instead of responding to a discussion post, which they can find a little dry sometimes and maybe a little boring, instead they're responding to the picture, which I think is pretty cool. Formative is really, really neat too for interpretive listening, interpretive reading, also interpersonal writing. And they can do a little presentational writing, speaking, and a little interpersonal speaking. This is an example of our graduation flyer that my district put out in Spanish. And I was really excited to see it because graduation was what are we doing? Is there graduation? Does anyone graduate? And so they put out this flyer in the language, and I was like, save. And so when I upload it into Go Formative, I can add questions. Students can respond with their voice. Students can respond typed. So it's almost any mode, and they can interact with the PDF. And then later you'll go back and you can see through you can see their answers, and you can hear them, and you can read their posts, and you can respond. And it's really, really neat. Go Formative became one of my favorite things in this experience. And I paid with my own money for next year because I am ready. I am uploading PDFs like crazy. And I think that's what I'm going to use it almost exclusively for, is PDFs and also my own travel pictures, because then you can narrate travel pictures. So if you're, growing up, if you're from the target language country and you have pictures of you growing up, you can then tag the picture and record your voice saying, this is me when I was 5, and so on and so forth for any level. Or if you've traveled to the country or countries, Go Formative really, really is cool. and it gets that interpersonal, but also gives them time to read the thing and to like sort of digest and understand. So it's not as panicked interpersonal sometimes as conversation can be. With all of these kind of things, with the conversations, with the, check-ins and all these things, I found that a problem over this last 9 weeks at the end of the semester was that students were doing things at like 2 a.m, and then they were emailing at like 2:01 in the morning. And I don't check email at 2 a.m. because I'm asleep like a grown-up, like an adult. And I would check my email to have like 400 emails, like just like, I mean, not that many, but like it felt like that many. And students were they were asking good questions. They wanted to redo things. They wanted to, and of course, like no problem, you can redo anything, but oh my gosh, the emails. So this form we used to use in person, this request to reassess, and it just gives me more information. What did you do? What do you need to do? I just want to have a conversation. And then a parent signs at the bottom. That way I don't have to send an email that says, well, Ying again failed another quiz. Woo-how. So she needs to redo it. And that's no problem, but it just saves me the email because the parents also have to like engage with it. But during the last quarter, we couldn't do that remotely. We were not touching her signature. So Elsie in my department made an electronic version. And so if you click on that, it goes to a copy of that form and you can make your own copy. And so all it says is name, like what the assignment is. And yes, I did it. And I understand it's like late. And I understand that my grades are my responsibility. And that's it. So now all of the late grades that I need to check are all in one place because so many emails, and I love emails, really great for interpersonal too. Email them back. They have time, so you're going to run the risk that they put it into Google Translate. But again, if we stay as comprehensible as possible and make it easy and quick to respond, they're probably less likely to do that. And so this form really saved me in the last quarter because it put all of the late grades. You can see it has 146 responses. It put them all in one place. And that was only like April. Oh my God, so many. But I know that I get frustrated with late work because I had a deadline. It was due. But also, we turn in stuff late. We're adults. I turn in things late. We get done with this late, or we say, oh, can I please have an extension? And kids don't necessarily do that. And especially if they've learned that school is mean, school is bad, and school hates them for whatever reason, then they're not going to ask. They're just going to accept the 50 or the F or whatever and like not really worry about it. So it puts the responsibility back on them to make sure that I know what's going on with their grades. And a couple of email things that helped a lot of those tasks, because again, those were all interpersonal, but then students would want to do them or redo them. And one thing that kept me organized in all of that was not only that sheet, like you can see there in the corner, but also a couple of things with email. We have Outlook for my district, and I found that students, I would send like weekly updates, like a couple times a week. I would email, okay, here's what we're doing, here's where we are, and Outlook lets you send an email later. So I could program it to send like every Monday at 8. We get it, like the students should get an email. I want to write it and get ahead on Thursday, so I can go ahead and type it on Thursday. And let's say it's an interpersonal email. Let's say I'm respond to the email of the day, which is really fun to get them interpersonally writing for maybe over a unit. Say there will be an email of the week, every Monday. And over the course of the 3 weeks or whatever your unit is, or your chapter, you need to respond to at least one. And so if you go ahead and pre-program them, let's say they go out every Monday at 8 a.m. Okay, guys, check your email. The email for the week is already gone out. Now they can respond in the language and you stay organized. And if you're like me, you're not going at 8:15 on Monday, oh, I forgot to send the email, which is like the worst. The other thing that helped me do that too was an auto reply, like a vacation message, because students were all emailing about the same thing over and over. Where is this? Where is this? How do I do this? It was the same questions a million times. And I was so tired of it. And so I made a vacation automatic response that answered the questions that I kept getting. And so this is the email they got back. I just received your email to make things easier. And then it's like, do. So they got it back regardless. And some would respond, that's not my question, but I didn't see it until later. So it didn't matter. But it answered most students' questions. And again, that's a fun way too to engage interpersonally is, okay, you have to email me by Monday at noon, and then I'm going to auto email you back with like a response, almost like the AP audio. The AP test audio says blah, blah, blah. And then you respond. And then they say, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then you respond. And so it's almost like that. You don't read their email response right away, but they're going to get an automatic reply. And so that's kind of fun too, to schedule them and then auto reply, because you're just in front of the class and they're like, you just emailed me. I'm like, no, I didn't, but I'm magic. And they can't figure out how you did it, but it's really funny. So it's great for organization, but also for like keeping all the things straight. And I think I mentioned Flipgrid before, and so I accidentally put these out of order. But Flipgrid's really nice for presentational speaking, but you can respond to students, which is neat. One thing that levels up for me is putting a lot of scaffolding in the prompt. At first, when I was using it, I was just putting the prompt, like answer to this, or just a question in the language. And then I realized, you know what? They're going to open up a new tab and look up how to say even just basic things. I would rather refresh their memory right here and then see how many they're using. Or you can say, use 5 of the words below. Now it gets a little spicier, maybe with the English or without. So they have to recognize them and, but the more accessible these tasks are, the more likely they're going to respond and like work to do their best. I think it's been my experience.
Wow. I'm pretty sure just like, every single participant here, we all get so many great ideas. Thank you, Meredith.
Of course.
And do you happen to know how your school will be running when it starts in fall?
Yeah, we just found out yesterday. Students will have the choice, either online or in person, not a combination.
Interesting. Like my school, we still don't know. We're still waiting.
Yeah, like yesterday, last minute.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think, most likely we're going to have, one of the 3 options here, blended, traditional, and remote.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the question is right here. What are some go-to high leverage practices?
Sure. Absolutely. And so I think all of the aforementioned, and when I go like kind of through my thoughts and I think about how it breaks down, I think about 3 things that we can do immediately that aren't us going, oh my gosh, but I can't, do we need a whole new curriculum? Do I have to make all these resources? Do I have to, and we come back to like, what do I have to do now? I think 3 things that are to consider as we look at reopening in whatever context, but probably just things we should consider anyway. And now we have the chance to, because if you're like where we are, testing has been canceled. Everything is canceled. Like there are no tests. So this is kind of exciting because they're not going to have to take anything that I didn't make, which is really fun because for ours, our students have to take a language test at the end that we didn't make. And so it's not my favorite. The first thing I think of is what can we immediately eliminate? What do we gripe about? What do we complain about when we go, like I have to teach, we're going to start whatever tomorrow. It's so hard. They never understand it because Spanish teachers do that all the time. The past tense. These 2 to be verbs. They're the worst. So if we complain about it, maybe we can just move it or get rid of it or save it or just put it in all throughout and not focus on it. Like what can we eliminate? What do you have to cover, but also why? So for us, like tests have been canceled. This is a chance to collaborate and really make some meaningful stuff together with my colleagues, not worry about students not knowing something yet. The second thing is getting dates right away, as well as close as you can to what students will be assessed on and when. So looking at that curriculum calendar and going, okay, for me, 3 weeks a unit, we're going to have this quiz this day, and this test this day. That's it. And I can go ahead and make my calendar because the sooner they know, the sooner they can get mentally ready. And that's most of engagement is just being mentally prepared and realizing that your teacher cares about you, and you know that because he or she is really organized and they know what's going on. For my department, yeah, we sit down at the beginning and we go ahead and pace everything out and say what we're going to do when. And we have to have the same quizzes and tests, but the classwork is completely teacher's choice. So half my grade book I choose, and then the other half I collaborate on and also can have a lot of influence on. And the third one is, how consistent are we? So having said that, how consistent are we with our team? Because if Ying students, if we both teach Chinese and Ying students are, they have a test every unit and 3 quizzes and 6 classwork assignments, and my students have maybe 1 test, 1 quiz, and like 2, they talk. We know they talk. Like students are like, oh, how, right? Students are like, who do you have? Oh, I have this person. I have this person. We know they're friends. So how consistent can we be with each other, but also with our school? I think that would be kind of cool. Our department has what I call like a 3-2-1 structure, because my department chair is amazing. And so, like I said, 3 classwork assignments, 2 quizzes, 1 test for every unit. Quizzes and tests have to be the same as the other people that teach that class. So if you're the only Chinese like 4 teacher, well then do whatever you want. But I'm on a team of like 8 Spanish teachers, so we have to collaborate really closely. And then those 3 classwork assignments, those are all my choice. So when we look at amount of work, it's laying out dates and then telling students what's going to be on the assessment. Because a lot of times the other thing we do is, well, I don't know, study everything because we want them to be ready. I know, I've said it, I'm like, yeah, that's the thing I do. Or I say, well, it's going to be kind of like that. Why not just go ahead and tell them? I think of a university syllabus. When I went to college and then graduate school once and then twice, because I don't have any hobbies, they would give you the syllabus. You walk in and they say, here you go. And you can see the dates. You can see exactly like when the quiz is, what's it on, when the paper is due. And I think if we treat high school students and younger a little bit more like that, I think that responsibility falls back. It comes back to them, because I told you that we had you had the calendar at the first day of school for the whole semester, pretty much, and then you update it. So I think that's a big part of it is looking at kind of what they have. This is my calendar for last October. So students can see that I put in, it's not usually this busy, but I was gone a couple of days. So we had fall break and I was gone at some place. Where was I? I was in Texas at the 18th and 19th. That's TFLA. Oh, yeah. I was gone for like a whole week. I've never been gone that much. And then I went to Michigan to hang out with Marcy Harris and talk to her district and do stuff, and then went to Massachusetts. So it just was like 2 conferences in a row. And so it's not usually this busy, but you can see I also put substitute work on there. So in the grade book, it was called Substitute 1, Substitute 2, Substitute 3. And Google Calendar allows you to click on these and you can see the assignments. So students were able to see the assignments and there was no reason for them not to do it. This also worked. So this was the system we had. And then we went remote, and it was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. They knew to go to the calendar. They knew to check every day and see if they had something to do or to catch up on. And that was it. So I linked a couple of Google Calendar videos because you can attach files. All of my lesson plans are all on my Google Calendar. Please take them, take out the Spanish and make it Chinese, etc. My computer is something's happening, like a message is coming through. And so you can take whatever you want, but that's what that kind of looks like for my students all the time. And I have a couple, like I said, I have 2 videos that describe how I use Google Calendar in detail. Because Google Calendar really is my favorite. So I think as long as we can keep the workload manageable for students and stay organized and tell them consistently and fairly what all is happening, like we do in any setting, but really especially remote, I think that just sets the tone for engagement. And suddenly they go, oh, okay, well, this isn't so bad. I can do this instead of, oh, what do you mean we have a quiz? This class has always quizzes. And it's like, what? No, it doesn't. We have the same amount that you have in your other. But to them, if that's what they feel like it seems like, that's what they feel like it seems like. And so being kind of as fair and consistent. And these really are the only tech tools. For next year, so unless it prints money or does something, I don't want it. I'm not here for it. I've already made up my mind, and I'm going to use all of those as much as I can or as much as I need to. And at the end of the year, if there's one that I don't really feel like using, okay. But I've got ones that I feel good about, and I've got ones that I feel good about for different reasons. And I think that's really what's sustainable. So it seems like a lot, but I promise. It's also taken a couple of years to get to a point where I can say no, because it's not really easy. If somebody shows me some new shiny technology tool and I get really excited, but I have to say, no, I don't think so. Like Nearpod. If you use Nearpod, then don't use Pear Deck. Or if you use Pear, it's the same thing. Or if you use Kahoot, well, don't worry about Quizlet Live. They're kind of the same thing. Don't feel like you need to use all the things all the time.
Good suggestions. Thank you so much. Wow. And so I think it's time for Q&A. Oh, can you read the chat now?
Yeah. I can go up there and click on it.
Gracias.
De nada.
De nada.
Okay, let me see. The chat's all in Chinese. Help. Oh.
All right, go to the bottom. You're going to see.
Oh, there we go. Phew. Yeah. Let's see. So I'm going to scroll up. Okay, so Fume. How do you provide feedback to students remotely? Depends. Depends on the feedback. Speaking feedback, a lot of Flipgrid. Writing feedback, usually email or Google Documents. I really like to share a Google Doc with students. We use a lot of Google. Even if you don't have Google Classroom, you can still use Google. And so a lot of feedback that way. The other thing that's nice is you can take those rubrics that are like in those writing forms. And we use eClass for our learning management system. I can just type them in. And then when the students write something in eClass or Canvas or It's Learning, like whatever your school has, if your school has one, I can put in the rubric and I can just click around. And so it's really nice. Like I would mark it on paper, I can just go doot, and it counts up the points and everything for me, which is really cool. So depending on the feedback, yeah. And also like feedback, maybe not for a grade. That's the fun feedback, right? Like there's no counting. It's like, you're doing great, get better at this. Or, some of those level ups. I see that you used 3 impressive extras. Awesome job. Like keep it up. And so that's motivating. I think the same thing with Difei Shi says, suggestions on conducting quizzes and tests online. We do, to be honest, again, I'm taking a class right now for my specialist, and you get 3 attempts for each quiz. And the first time I do the best I can, and then I see my score. The second time I go back and I look up the reading, and then I try it again, and I print off my answers before I post it. And then the third time, which is the last one, then I'm really, really careful. So I think and I'm an adult. I think for students, I think redos really are the biggest thing for like letting them retry, because I was nervous. I still have teacher control, teacher power, and I want to say, no, you should have gotten it right that first time. And then I think about all the chances we get to redo things as adults, like, I didn't go renew my driver's license, but I'll go tomorrow. And we're just able to. So kind of seeing if we're holding students to unfair standards. I like a lot of redos, especially if it's all translation. Like if it's all Google Translate, redo. Or, let's Zoom and you can say it to me. Or like come in after school, but I'm thinking of like remotely. Anything that gets them genuinely engaging in a way that they don't need to rely on the translator tool. A couple of words, of course, it's a great tool, but how can we get them not afraid to make mistakes and to realize that I'm fair and I don't have unfair expectations, and our rubric allows for lots of mistakes, and not just allows mistakes, expects mistakes. There are mistakes and errors built in so that they're not going, well, it says no errors. Who makes no errors? I'm not a native speaker. I make errors in Spanish all the time. Nobody's language is perfect. Or I might say something and somebody else goes, that sounds weird. And I'm like, really? But I speak English. Like, but what do you mean weird? And so we know how unique language is. So I think a fair task, a fair rubric, and a lot of redos or retakes. And then it's not just, haha, gotcha. You only had that one try, but actually it's, okay, let's keep doing it like a coach. you don't mess up a play in the game and the coach says, you're never playing again, Ying, get out of here, you're off the team. But in the classroom, we go, no, sorry, no retakes. What? Like, so kind of I have to relook at who has the power, like the power structure. And that's really hard for me because I'm a teacher.
Wow. And, the Chinese teachers just keep typing, thank you. And
of course. No, 谢谢.
Learn so much. And your presentation is really 好. And Meredith, can you go to the next slide, please?
Of course.
And so actually, I collected the Chinese names.
Boy. Oh no.
And yes, here we are. Yes. So if we are just going from top to bottom, like 白若梅一, 梅梦德二, 白梅丽三, which one do you like the most, guys? And yes, I saw that too. Most popular vote is 白若梅.
Look at my little first character. It looks like a little cake. It's so cute.
It's actually, it means white. That's your last name. Oh, I think number one is
a lot of one.
Yes, thank you, Meredith and 金老师.
Yes, 李老师. Are we going to 送大礼包吗？
哎呀，真的是啊 ，Sarah 老师大礼包准备好了吗？ Yes, Sarah just sent it the link.
Yeah. It's in the chat. Yes, please click on the link.
谢谢，
很好，
非常好，非常好，谢谢老师们。感谢大家参与今晚由引领中文教学的全美中小学中文教师协会举办的 CLASS FRONTLINE 热点谈节目，也请大家继续关注我们下一期的热点谈，超级热点的这个题目。解析今年 AP 考题，初探学生语言能力培养。所以老师们请关注我们的这个 CLASS 会员邮件，或者我们的微信、脸书、Facebook 和Twitter 都可以查看到我们下一期节目的报名方式。好，谢谢金老师，谢谢 Meredith 老师。
Yes， 谢谢，
谢谢
白若梅白老师，
白老师，好，谢谢所有的在线老师。我们下期再见。